My name is Mark Matthews. I am from a little town called Pacific Grove in California. I currently live in Hamden, Connecticut. One of my favorite things to do in this world is play guitar. And I love doing it because it's something I can do comfortably in my own home. It's something that I was able to excel at a rate that people without disabilities could also excel at. I've had a lifelong disability, which is cerebral palsy. I'm 30 years old now. And when I was born, the doctors were unsure of exactly what the condition was. It was not until I was a year and a half years old that I got a formal diagnosis for ataxic cerebral palsy and was given a regimen in order to combat that. I was told that I needed to seek physical therapy, work with orthopedic surgeons. I was required to use a walker and plastic AFO braces that supported my feet and ankles and knees. And so my first very large intervention was a massive surgical undertaking. I received heel cord lengthenings in both my Achilles tendons, tendon lengthenings behind my knees, and tendon lengthenings in my inguinal canals because of how tense and tight my muscles were. I was unable to extend my legs out. And thankfully, the surgery took, and I was good enough with physical therapy that I was able to walk independently without a walker, which opened the world up more for a kid like me. And when you're that age, you don't realize the differences you have between others. And as the years went on, you gain that realization of what makes you different and what your limitations really are. So I found myself very early on wanting to be a part of these things, try out for the football team, try out for the baseball team, participate in physical education at school. Let's say it's running a mile. They had the requirement of, you had to run a mile in under 14 minutes. And of course, at that time, that wasn't something I was capable, even if I really wanted to do that. So there was many moments in time at a young age where I had to be my own advocate and vocalize what I could do and couldn't do. Where the challenge came in was being an eager kid to want to do something new and fun. There was always the question that was raised by the other party: are you sure you can do this? And if I didn't know, the only way for me to find out was just to try it. So, for example, can you swim a lap in the pool? And it was this constant battle, of feeling like I had to prove myself and say, hey, you know what? I think I can do this. And if a person is nice enough and empathetic enough, they'll let you try something. But other times, it's happened where someone will say, we're not going to let you do this. We're not comfortable with having a liability. That's what it feels like, just being a liability. We're not going to let you get into this pool because that seems dangerous. They may be right, but it doesn't feel good to not even be given the opportunity to try that. As a young kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. And you learn pretty quickly that that's very unlikely. If I was being realistic, I knew that whatever I would be capable of doing and have the stamina and endurance to do may not be a very high bar. I was about 19 years old when I decided to go to college, and I fell in love with STEM, mostly chemistry and microbiology. It was something that I excelled at very quickly. So I've always been very interested in cancer treatment and chemotherapy. And that has sort of snowballed into me working in a reference laboratory doing high complexity cancer diagnostics. And so if you asked me even 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, what do you think you would be doing? You would not be this now. Definitely not. I would probably tell you that I would be working a desk job in some office, being able to work comfortably from a chair behind a computer. I think I gave myself less credit than I deserved at the time. I'm grateful that I stepped out of my comfort zone and I pushed a little harder than I probably should have with school and taking a risk. It's nice to know that when you feel that, your limitations are permanent, it isn't necessarily always the case. And I wish I had told myself that at a young age. I wish I could go back and say, hey, you know what? Jump in the pool, even if they tell you not to. I grew up in California. ADA compliance is a very big thing there. And it was a bit of a shell shock moving to Connecticut that, many of the homes are historic homes and they're built many years ago. and not really built with accessibility in mind. When I moved here about 4 years ago, I was walking independently, but still had struggles doing things like climbing stairs. So I'm lucky now, the house that I live in, we were able to make some accommodations like repairing steps into the home so they're not as high or uneven because it's challenging for me to lift my legs up. I met my wife many years ago. This was right around the peak of phone-based online dating. And there was always the challenge for bridging that gap of like, okay, we've been talking on the phone for a little while. Now we're going to meet in person. You get in your head, you tell yourself that, oh, this person's not going to accept me. This person's going to be uncomfortable with being seen with me in public. And it's just like, what am I worried about, And she was everything but encouraging to me being who I am and finding joys in life that are maybe a little out of my comfort zone, but I am capable of doing. The rest is history. And I think that's a little combination of luck and some suave, I feel comfortable talking, and there's a bit of a subtle art to helping people overlook like, hey, I have a limitation, but I could probably make you laugh. What makes me me, and really focusing on that. That's what's helped me, establish relationships with friends is like, what are my strengths? And the friends that I have now, outside of my wife are lifelong friends. I may have a pretty tight-knit small group of friends but they are ones that I trust with everything and they do with me. And it was all based out of being myself with them. I am eager to travel more. I want to have access to Machu Picchu. I want to go see the pyramids in Egypt. I want to go to a new place that may be out of my comfort zone. It opens up the world a little bit more when you can, one, develop the courage to ask for these amenities to travel. It's a skill that I would really like to develop or improve upon is strength training. I think by really finding your groove and physical therapy needs and dialing in on weak areas, but in a manageable way that you can actually achieve. I can't go and just squat on the squat rack in the gym, but maybe like I could use like an assisted squat rack or a seated bench squat. How important is walking in a traditional manner with a gait that's recognizable by other people? It was a goal. It was a goal for a long time. And it becomes an unattainable goal that over and over and over again, no matter how hard you work, how many exercises you do, or how many sessions of physical therapy you do, that it's not going to be what you picture in your head. And the moment that you come to, that realization that like, it's okay if you shoot for the moon and you come short. If you look at yourself 10 years ago, if it was more difficult for you to do the things that you're doing now with ease, and if you can look away from the challenges you might have, you will be able to appreciate things around you and find hobbies and people and interests that were not what you would have expected to run into at the time. And I'll give you an example. When I was going to school and I was especially frustrated with my limitations because walking around campus and getting around was so exhausting that I felt homebound when I wasn't in school, that I picked up playing the guitar. And it was just waiting for me to do that. It's something that I should have done years and years ago. And it was a skill that I completely ignored the idea of having at a young age because I thought like, oh, I guess I'm not going to be able to try it for the baseball team. So that's it for me. And it's so silly to think like that. I'm eternally grateful for what I've experienced, although sometimes frustrating, because it really opens up a world once you realize that it's okay to know that if it's not going to be perfect one day.